Hey, it's Sophia, and I want to take you through the things that I've learned in the last 6 months approaching my personal writing goals and resources to help you to get there too if you want to write for yourself. And I'm a writer, so I do copywriting. I teach writing to entrepreneurs and writers who want to write a book. Basically, all of them want to help people, and I help them to use words to do that with my coaching and my teaching. And I write a lot of things to help people write and to showcase my abilities for my career. So that's like one place where I do writing. But I just wanted to say that this year, 2023, at New Year's, I was very clear that like my priority number one is to have a better relationship with myself and to focus more on my personal life, because I'm pretty motivated personally to go for my career, and I have been ever since I was a kid, because it was like ingrained in me that my survival depends on this. So it's so it was something I was very stressed about and knew was essential, but my life would be the thing that would fall by the wayside. So for me to prioritize that is really important, otherwise it'll just fall on the wayside. So this year I was like, not just to bring my personal life into focus, but it was more specific than that. It was like to end this year more self-loving than I began the year with. And I think I'm on track with that so far. And we'll talk about how this kind of unrolled. But I just wanted to say that if you're thinking that I'm gonna that's my priority. So just so you know, might resonate with you, might not. But what I had said is I really want to end this year more self-loving than I began January 1st. I want to feel connected to my own foundation, to connect to myself on a daily basis, to listen to myself, even the mad, sad, shame, messy, crazy parts of me, and be all accepting. Instead of working on something outside, I want to remember to put the focus on going in. To sum that up in a word for the year, foundation. And I wrote that in an article for Medium. And you can read more about that on my blog. I'm going to link to this with all of the links and things I mentioned are all linked in there. And this speaks to me for me, it's so important for me to write these things down, and it's great because then I can reference where I was at exactly, because sometimes our memories of where we were and where we actually were are different. So for me, writing things down is so important. And I only got to this clarity because everyone makes New Year's goals and stuff. I only got to this clarity because I took time to get there. I really took a lot of time to journal and ask myself questions, do meditations, do all these things to really get clear on what is my purpose for this year, which is important for me because if you didn't know, my dad died 2 years ago, and it really put my entire life upside down, and he's my only parent, and I became responsible for his estate, and it just really changed my life a lot, and it changed my priorities a lot, and it changed what I had tolerance for and what I had energy for and motivation for completely, because a lot of the things that I had juice for before I didn't anymore, or I was like, why? This is actually not that important. So it was really important for me to feel like I had a clarity of purpose for the year and what I was going to do, because that really helps me to know that I'm on track, and I really feel better when I feel like I'm on track. But the key is to make sure that my goal is one that is really going to be a productive one by my own standards, and not just what society tells us to prioritize, which I feel like is work. Capitalism tells us prioritize work, which is important. We gotta pay bills, but when are we gonna live though? And especially having my dad die really early at 57, it's life is short. Do not take it for granted, and do not postpone it forever. It took me a long time to figure that out, and I know it now. But it wasn't just about prioritizing my life though. It was about making my goal self-acceptance, self-listening, because your relationship with yourself is the ultimate foundation. And I do feel like by focusing on that word foundation, it has encouraged me to also look at things like my financial foundation and my home and my food and my body and other things that are really foundational to my life. But I just want to be clear that when I say my goal was foundation, I'm talking about my relationship to myself. And it doesn't mean I'm happy all the time. It means that I am present with myself. However I am, I'm listening to myself, I'm honoring myself, and doing what I need to do for me because I'm listening. So I know. I'm not denying it or suppressing it or ignoring it or avoiding it. I am with me. And those, temporary states of mind of avoidance and all of that can happen, but I'm just going to keep on bringing it back to listening to myself every day as much as possible through the year. And I think I've been doing pretty good. So now I want to say that, like, under this umbrella of this foundation, which is the most important thing, really, and after anything else, I've just given myself kind of like permission to just like let it go in terms of importance. Hey baby, I'm recording, just so you know. My husband just popped out. So under that, I also was getting the sense that like I wanted to work on my fiction again, because I've always had these fiction projects. If you know me a long time, since I was a kid, I started writing fantasy. I wanted to write fantasy. I've always loved reading fantasy, but it's tough, and I'm gonna drink some of this because we're in a conversation now. It's tough, it's tough for me to write fiction, because fiction I actually think is a lot harder than nonfiction. So in my work, I focus on nonfiction, helping people write nonfiction. I know a lot about nonfiction. Okay, I'm not saying I know everything, but fiction is harder because fiction has a lot more things that you need to do in order to make it work. Versus nonfiction, like, you can tell a story about what happened today in so many ways and it will work as nonfiction, but not fiction. Fiction has a lot of conditions, okay? So if you want me to talk about that some other time, I will. But I'll just say it's harder, and it's harder for me. So I started a series right the year before my dad died, and I was in the middle of drafting the second book in the series when I found out he had cancer. And since then, I haven't been able to work on the books, okay? And I don't just have the first 2 books done. I have a bunch of notes for the rest of it. It's supposed to be a 5-book series. But I just didn't, my dad had cancer literally is like, I could only handle what I could handle, like the minimum things necessary to live. And once he actually died a few months later, I could barely even do that. So, no, and now it's been almost 2 years in a couple months. It'll be the 2-year anniversary of my dad's death, and I still haven't made progress on this book. But I was saying, I need to do this. So I started to, trying to do different things, and I kind of set that as like my goal that I was holding loosely to kind of prioritize myself, was to prioritize this book project, which is really easy to not, because it's not really for money that I'm doing it. It's more of just a personal interest. So to get clear on that, there were some worksheets that I did kind of for the season, for seasonal planning, and which also helped me make this review. So I linked that in my blog post if you want to get clear on what your goal is for right now. So then I started to do some work with a lady named Jackie Ackery, who does EFT tapping, because I really like tapping. It's you tap on your acupressure points, and it helps to move emotions, and it really helped me. And it helped me in a way I didn't expect to, because I started working through the emotions on the book series, because I just knew there was so much around it that I couldn't even write, because there were so many emotions. So I started to be sorting through that. And then what I realized eventually was something that I really didn't expect, because I was also reading a book, which I link in my blog post as well, by Becca Saimi, where she was talking about sometimes people get blocked from writing because a big life event occurs. And that's when I was like, yeah, I know that I stopped writing after my dad got sick and then died, and obviously that's what's happened right around then. But I also thought about all of the paperwork that I've had to do as a result of the estate and all of these other things. It's really dragged on, and it's really been extremely unpleasant. All of the things that I've had to do as a result of my dad dying to wrap up his affairs, I really don't like it, and I really don't have any other choice but to do it. So legally, so that really sucked up a lot of my bandwidth. And then because I was doing that, it created a mountain of other things that I needed to do, because I had to legally do all these things for deadlines, and then like that made me postpone other things that I legally need to do for my own self. And so then I have a like mountain of things that even when I'm done my dad's mountain, I have another mountain of things to do, and it's real. It's not like made up that I have to do all these things. And so I've been I've been kind of like asking myself, why aren't you doing your book? Why aren't you doing your book? But like imagine putting 5 books in your brain, like a 5-book series, like it connects to it, everything, it's not like writing one little article for me. It's like a big interconnected web of all of this information, all of these characters, all of these things that need to happen to make it work. And I can't hold that in my head when I'm literally holding like all of the random affairs of another person's life in my brain and still trying to unpack that, and then trying to unpack the mountain of things that there's just way too much that got piled on my plate heavily for me to be able to handle the addition of a 5-book series as well. And I didn't realize that. And I didn't realize that was the real reason why I hadn't written the book series. I was thinking it was something else, but that's what it is. It's a bandwidth issue. And that was my realization that like I have a limited amount of bandwidth. And since I've been grieving, and since I've been surviving this loss, as well as some traumatic things that have happened since then, honestly, as a result, it has been really hard for me. It has been really hard for me. And it's the kind of hard for me, it's like I don't talk about it being hard for me every day, because it's just, my mom died when I was really young, and I didn't talk about my mom being dead every day. In fact, I hated it whenever it came up, which was all the time. And I don't really like talking about it because it doesn't change, and people expect you to be over it. And sometimes you don't get over it, like ever. And that is what happens when someone you love is gone. And I know people can say like, oh, they're on the other side and all that kind of stuff. And like, I kind of believe that. But there are moments when that doesn't matter. And I get really upset about this because like, it's like spiritual bypassing, and it feels like gaslighting to me sometimes, where it's like, oh, well, they're on this side, And it's like, yes, thank you for your thought. Doesn't change the fact that I'm sad every day. Okay? So I'm not yelling at you watching this thing, but I'm just yelling at the way it affects my own brain when people say that, because it feels like it's suppressing me. It's disconnecting me from myself. It's telling me, don't listen to yourself when you're sad. Your sad doesn't know the truth, which is that spiritual things are reality. But the truth is, I can't call my person, and I have to deal with all of his stuff. And it's hard. And I had been like not acknowledging that for myself. And it causes me pain. It causes me harm to not acknowledge that this is a big deal. And so I realized that. And tapping and everything was really helpful, because it helped me to kind of sort out what is like the gaslighting, like not self-acceptance side of this, that's just pushing and pushing and pushing for more and more and more productivity, and what is actually me, and the compassion that I need to be a human being right now, and to be surviving in a world that wants me to be on all these different forms for their own convenience. What is the me? What is the real? What is the Sophia? And I've always been a champion for being a human being, because again, I have been through complicated loss and trauma my whole childhood, and I am sick of being gaslit, and I'm sick of being told that I shouldn't feel. So my big aha moment was that I have a limited amount of bandwidth, and although we'd like to do everything in the whole world, especially me, because I have lots of ideas and lots of projects and lots of things I want to do, sometimes I just don't have the bandwidth. Sometimes I need to do XYZ first and then the next thing. Sometimes I can braid things together and do a bunch of projects at once, but this 5-book series is not the kind of thing I can braid in with 100,000 pieces of estate documentation and legal deadlines and stuff like that. Not computing, not compatible. So I realized I had to attend to the mountain of things that I need to do. The documents, scurrying around to banks, the calling people, all of that. And my mind could only hold so much. And since my dad died, actually, I, had a huge, the emotional landscape of my nervous system really changed after my dad died, and my capacity to mentally hold things is much reduced, and my anxiety is much higher. And it's starting to change a little bit, but it's still not what it was. It's still not what it was. And so I learned you can only do so much, and there's an opportunity cost to everything. And although I didn't choose everything that I've been forced to do since my father died, I didn't choose to have to deal with him dying. I didn't choose to do the cleanup of paperwork. It doesn't matter. There's an opportunity cost to doing that. It means that I can't do other things in some cases. And that's life. And it's like a relief to accept that, because it's saying I don't need to be superhuman. I don't need to expect the unachievable of myself right now. I'm sick of that. I'm sick of beating myself up when I can't achieve things, and that I can't do that with my fiction project either, And by the way, if you hear noises, it's my dishwasher. Sorry, but pretend I'm underwater like a mermaid. So yeah, it's been a lot of responsibility, and it's made it hard to have the bandwidth to do the fiction series. And that was a big realization in the last 6 months. So after that, I reassessed my goals, and I decided to stop trying to do the fiction series, to instead just try to work on the things that I need to do, that are kind of the cleanup things that need to happen, that are sucking my bandwidth away. And it wasn't a matter of needing like a new editor or a new book coach or something like that. Although I know how valuable that is, being a book coach and an editor myself for nonfiction. That's what I had first thought I needed, but it turns out actually I needed to focus on actually a completely different set of tasks, unrelated to writing at all. And only then would I have the bandwidth to restore my capacity to write fiction again. And this is really important, because this is me honoring again my ultimate priority of listening to myself, of not listening to myself with the desire to change myself and contort myself and manipulate myself and control myself and manage myself into a box, into a shape that is not my shape. That is not the point of listening to myself. Listening to myself is like meeting myself where I am, meeting myself halfway. And that's the same thing I do with all my writing clients. I don't shame my clients for not being able to write. And I don't know that I was shaming myself exactly, but I was definitely like expecting something to happen, to change. But I let that go. And I really am thankful to Jackie Ackery for her tapping. And she did a program that I took called Goal Trauma, which I really recommend. If you're watching this in June, mid-June, it is open right now, so I do recommend checking it out. And she has a free class that I'm gonna share the link to as well, because I really had such a good experience from it. I decided to be an affiliate of hers and spread the word, because I stopped feeling bad about the lack of progress on this goal. Like I really was feeling kind of disappointed, and it was feeling unfinished. But now I feel like very on track with it, because I understand that I am working on it in my own way by just focusing on what is on my plate and being present with that. I don't need to be split into like two anymore, with one part judging me and thinking I should add even more to my plate. Like I'm like fully just looking at the plate that I have and accepting my limits and releasing the pressure to work on something I physically cannot do right now, which really doesn't help any of the things that I've had to deal with. Like it's really important for me to be self-compassionate. I am a trauma survivor. I am a loss survivor. Complicated loss all through my childhood. I don't need any more negative self-talk or blame or expectations that I can't possibly meet. I need to be celebrated for how far I have come, for everything that I have done. And honestly, I don't really get a lot of that, except for the friends that I have that are far away and my wonderful husband. And I need to do that for myself. I don't have parents anymore to do that. Not that I got a whole ton of it all the time, honestly, but I have to do that. I have to parent myself. I have to do that for myself. So I have been getting a lot of things done, actually, is the result of the last 6 months, and I want to celebrate that. It's not what I thought I would be focusing on, and I'm not talking about any of my business things, although I wrote like 26 articles in the last 6 months as well for Medium and LinkedIn and On Purpose Women magazine. So I did plenty of writing and showing up and all kinds of things work-wise, but I wanted to really just give that weight and importance to my life accomplishments that I've done in these last 6 months, because I don't really do that I don't know if I've ever really done that very much. My goal was to be focusing on self-love. My goal was to announce that I got married. I got married in the fall. That was a big thing I did in the fall. I got married towards the end of the year, and then I was kind of sitting on it because it was like we eloped. It was sort of a secret, just to keep my bandwidth. Again, I really didn't have the bandwidth for anything more than the absolute bare minimum viable wedding. And I didn't want to deal with anybody else, honestly, who wasn't needed to be there for legal reasons to sign a witness testimony. So I had a very small wedding that was good, aside from being really sad that my dad wasn't around, and I needed to announce that. And again, it was really sad for me to announce it because there's only one person that I wanted to announce it to, and he's not here. But I was able to announce it, and everybody knows now that I'm married, and there's been some really sweet responses, and I appreciate that. I have a very small circle at this point in my life now, and I'm just, I try to be grateful for what I have. So I really do appreciate that. But honestly, I'm just kind of glad it's done because it really stressed me out. I'm also studying Italian regularly for the first time. I have family in Italy, and it's always been really hard because when I grew up, I couldn't communicate at all with my family. I would go visit them. My mom was Italian, but she died, and then there was no way for me to learn it as a kid at all. We just didn't have the resources that we do now with the internet, and there were no classes I could take. So I it was so hard. And then it wasn't until like college that I was able to learn more, and then after that I was kind of on my own buying tickets and stuff like that, and like I didn't have the ability to do that with trying to pay rent and all the other things. Like I couldn't visit as much. So I haven't been there in like 10 years, and there's always been a lot of negative self-talk about my Italian ability and myself. So I was able to kind of work through that, and I have been listening, and I know I understand a lot more Italian than I used to, so I've been studying it much more regularly. I found a way to make it fun, so tapping really helped me with that a lot, as well as the wedding announcement. Really everything, I tap on everything. I also have been going to the gym more and pushing myself to get strong and fit. I have had several injuries and like conditions that have made it really hard. Like I have a hip condition and a wrist condition, so like sitting, standing, anything with my lower body, and now anything with my upper body is like now more difficult because of these injuries. But I have like, arranged for specialists and everything, and I'm trying to get back into the best shape of my life. And so I've been working towards that, and that's really important. And it also can be very emotionally hard when you have chronic conditions or things that don't just immediately go away with a pill. Like, it's hard, especially when you're like very aware of your mortality. Scary, but I'm doing it. And I've also been doing volunteer work for Her Future Foundation regularly, which is a nonprofit that I was working with before my dad died, and I had to basically stop all of the way I was helping them because I couldn't handle it at that time. Again, bandwidth, but I have been feeling really called to help them as a writer and help them with their writing materials for grants and spreading the word and fundraising for them. And as a result, last year when I fundraised, I did a little bit of last year, we raised over $1,000 together in my community to get them NGO status. And the good news also, this spring we raised a little bit of money. We were able to get them a bank account to receive money from grant sources and stuff like that. And recently they were able to get a grant, which is coming through to work with youth and ensure peaceful elections in Sierra Leone. And so they've gotten, a bunch of money to help them to do that, thousands of dollars to help them do that. So it's kind of cool to know that my efforts now and also in the past have been supportive to them, as well as everyone's donations to help them to actually have funding that they can use to really make a difference. So that's really great. And I hope to do more in the future. I did a lot of writing for a grant. They didn't get that one, but I hope to reuse some of that for future grants, and there are things in the works. So it's just cool that like I was able to kind of work through that, because it's really hard, honestly, reading about like FGM and child marriage, and you know, knowing that teenage girls are forced to have like transactional sex for food and water, or maybe they didn't even really want to, but they're kind of forced to. It's like really messed up over there in terms of gender, being girls. And so to try to help an organization that wants to change that, it just feels like the most important thing that I can be doing. And I'm really glad that I have been doing that. I'm like really emotional today, I guess, because I'm just being really open, and there is still rawness in my life. Like I have said, I am not healed with a period at the end of the sentence, you know, there's a semicolon. And I can celebrate. I finished the damn estate paperwork for the state of Maryland where my dad died. All of the legal documents for that quarter of all of the things to be done is complete. So I'm not done cleaning everything up. That was my dad's, but I have completed the things I need to do for the state of Maryland. So hooray! No longer have to deal with their deadlines. Cool. It's kind of, but again, it's kind of like not really a fun thing to celebrate because it's related to my dad's death and there's still more work to do. So, oh well, but at least I got that done, because it was like a big task to do. The final like paperwork was like a stack of paperwork. Okay, so the best change from January, just in sum, wrapping up, is that if my goal was to love myself more at the end of the year than the beginning, I'm definitely on track. And I'm feeling much more enough with just how I am. I've been a lot less censored, I feel like, about sharing my day-to-day state. I'm feeling more self-forgiveness about the limits of my abilities. Like I said, I just accept that bandwidth is a thing, and I have less of that inner dialogue of like, you should do this thing also. You know, I kind of am able to be like, actually, I need to do this thing first, and we're letting that go for the moment. Like, we'll revisit that later, you know? And I'm feeling more trust in myself, which is good. I've always put a big priority on trusting myself, because it's shown me time and time again that it's the right thing to do, that I can trust my intuition. It leads me to good places, led me to my husband, and all of these other things. And the gaslighting and stuff that I experienced in my life was a direct way to get me not to trust myself, so that way they could get away with bad behavior, those people. And I know that self-trust is the answer to everything. And so yeah, to be more self-trusting is good. Also, I'm feeling more realistic about what I can put on my plate, so I don't stress about what I can do. And the increase in self-compassion that I feel is really valuable to me. And it's great that I'm having these emotional changes, but I'm also getting things done. It might not be what I thought I would get done, but it's still really important. And I'm glad to not just be sweeping it under the rug and being like, oh, I didn't do anything. Actually, I did a lot of things. So yeah, so I just wanted to say that I do have these resources linked in my blog post. The only thing is that the thing with Jackie Ackery, the tapping practitioner that I've been using, who's really helped me, she has a free series of tapping classes right now that you can try them for free for a limited time. And then she also has a program called Goal Trauma that I went through that is open as well now. And if you sign up, I think you have to sign up pretty soon if you want to get like free one-on-one help with her, but if you miss it, it's just a little bit more, and I thought it was worth it to upgrade. It definitely was worth it, because I've done the Goal Trauma program now, which really helped me with my messed up relationship with my goals, that my goals were kind of a source of negative self-talk and beating myself up when I didn't get them, and then I would get them and then I wouldn't really be happy. Like, that whole cycle is really toxic, and I knew it was, but it was great to kind of just do some really kind of strategic deep dive healing work on that, with tapping EFT. And if you aren't familiar with that tool, you can try it for free. Or if you are, like, I have spent a lot of money on tapping EFT stuff in the past, and I've worked with a lot of people, but there was something about the way that Jackie does it that I really feel like it's been working for me maybe better than ever. And I just really recommend her work a lot, which is why I wanted to highlight that opportunity. If you tend to beat yourself up, or you have emotions about the things that you want to do and that's why you're not doing them, this is going to be really helpful for you, and you can reuse it for so many different things, just like I have done to do all the things that I've done. So just want to say thank you to you watching, if you're watching, but also thank you to myself for being on my own side. This loss of my father has brought up a lot from my childhood, and the loneliness and the horrible feelings that I had to go through alone growing up was so hard that I had to disconnect from myself. I had to forget so much in order to just make it another day. And to rebuild that relationship with myself is so essential and so important. And it's not the kind of thing anyone can validate for you. It's not the kind of thing you get measured on and applauded, because only you know how good that relationship is. I mean, I think sometimes people can sense, but you're the one that really misses out when you don't have a good relationship with yourself. So it takes personal choice and determination to decide, like, I want a better relationship with myself, and I'm gonna make it the priority over whatever happens. And I'm proud of myself for making that decision and kind of being anti-capitalist a little bit, and good-humored and patient and compassionate and generous with myself in that way. And I'm also grateful to all the people who have been understanding and supportive of that in my life, and very lucky that I have the privileges that I have running water, that I have shelter, that I have food, that I have safety, and purely because of where I was born and when and to whom, and I'm glad. So that's all. Big hugs.